Hey, welcome to Car Wash How To. Got a quick something I'm gonna show you. We had an incident here at this little wash the other day. We had some trash come through the lines, getting the tanks, and something you want to make sure of. The particular tank happened to be the cold water rinse tank, and it did not have a filter on it. So guess what? I ended up with trash in every one of my regulators, every one of the manifolds at the booms, every one of the guns, and my attendant calls me and says, none of the guns are working. We don't have any pressure. Well, told him to shut it down. I'd be there. Sure enough, when I show up, take the tips off the gun and I shoot trash out of it. Look in the tank. There's all sorts of trash in the tank. Found that we had no filter, no screen. This is just a little mesh screen that should be on all of your tanks to keep them from passing trash through to your pumps and your check valves and your solenoids. So needless to say, I ended up with a mess. So just finishing up taking the last, it's a little 4-bay gated self-serve. So just finishing up taking the 4th bay manifold apart, cleaning the check valves out. Just going to show you real quick for those of you that don't know much about the manifolds and the check valves and all that at the top of your booms. I'll show you a little bit about what I've got and how I'm putting it back together real quick. So watch and see. All right, here's the manifold I'm working with. This is off of one of the tops of my booms in bay 4. I've already disassembled it. I've cleaned out the check valve. For those of you not familiar with the manifolds, at the top of the boom you bring in your low pressure functions to meet with your high pressure going to your gun and your wand and all. So normally you have a manifold like this. You're ending up running your product here, air here, and product here. This is pre-soak. Here's my air, joined air between pre-soak and tire cleaner, and this is my tire cleaner. So normally we'll end up putting this check valve in line, and then you end up adding your high pressure further over here. So this check valve right here will keep the high pressure from backing up into your low pressure. You're running 1,000 psi over here, whereas you've got polytube over here that's only 150, 200 psi rated. So you don't want your 1,000 psi backing up into your low pressure. So that's why you've got this check valve. Now when you're reinstalling it, you'll see right there on the side of it a little arrow. You need to be very careful of which way that arrow is pointing. A check valve will allow it to flow in one direction but not the other. So in this case, we want our low pressure going through it into the hose and down into the boom, but we don't want our high pressure going through it. So in that case, we're going to take it and we're going to put the arrow pointing towards the high pressure. So that's the direction that the fluid will flow. So now we'll have that in there. Now this is something interesting. Again, this is an older wash, a 1970s wash, but one of the things I did to allow my hose to fit in here easier is I took a gun swivel. This is the swivel we use on the bottom of our guns in the bays. And I put this gun swivel here because the older hose didn't have a swivel on the end. So now with this gun swivel, I just put my hose up there, turn my swivel and attach it. So that's what I've got going right now. So maybe that'll help a few of you out understanding that this is your manifold at the top of your boom. You may have 5 or 6 low pressure functions, but you always have a check valve separating your low pressure from your high pressure. Like and subscribe. This is the finished product here, sitting up on top of the boom. For those of you already in the car wash business, you'll recognize that zebra boom. So yes, this is a 1970s car wash. There's the boom going down to the gun and all. Neighbor's got a race car. Need to be very certain about which direction that check valve goes in. Put that backwards, you run 1,000 psi. I had an install the other day that one of my guys put one in backwards ended up running 1,000 psi back to 6 or 8 flow jet pumps and blew them off. So very critical, make sure of your arrow and which direction that arrow on that check valve says. I told you about these poly push lock fittings that they're lifesavers. Watch how quick this is. Take my air, push it in, it's done. Take my tire cleaner, done. Oh, well, that one doesn't want to cooperate. Take my pre-soak hose, done. That's how quick those poly push locks are. They're great. They're a lifesaver, make everything easy.